Well, hello, lovely listeners. We have the wonderful Sean Kelly today. Sean has created, starred, and sold his own TV show at the age of 40 without any experience. And he spent 12 seasons on TV in the US and the UK. And he airs in 127 countries. I was intrigued when I started to read your stuff, Sean, because I do know that the Celebrity Storage Hunter or the Storage Hunter program, I never really got into it because I've tried to avoid stuff like that. So
Yeah.
apologies, but
No,
a lot of my friends did.
yeah.
So just to give you a bit more listeners, Sean was 40 in 2010, announced to family and friends that he was going to star in his own TV show, and it was going to be a worldwide hit. Well, that's quite a statement, Sean, and because he'd never done it before. But only 9 short months later, without any experience, no agent, no manager, no contacts, you had your own TV show on Tru TV called Storage Hunters.
Yes.
Intriguing, intriguing. And then after 6 seasons, you actually moved to the UK and you filmed Storage Hunters over here
Yes.
on Dave. And then you created and produced and starred on the Celebrity Storage Hunters.
Mm.
And you had over 130 British celebrities. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And okay. And then you've also founded dothebigdream.com. So now you
Yes.
also coach people on how they can achieve their big lifelong dream. And
That's right.
you have a 15-step formula for achieving any dream. So I hope you're going to share some of that on here.
Yeah.
Um, and your foundation pillar skills. And you trained yourself on how to be an auctioneer. And
Mm.
you've raised 500 million for non-profit schools, hospitals, and your website is thecharityauctioneer.com.
Mm.
Oh, listen, listeners, it don't stop there. Right. So
Mm.
Sean also opened his own comedy club called the Comedy Palace. And you've produced, starred on 7 shows a week for 8 consecutive years. I mean, you were just saying before we came on that you were doing comedy shows. So I'm expecting some great jokes today. And yeah, so while you owned your comedy club, a young man came looking for stage time. You saw something special in him, and the young man is named Jimmy O Yang, who went on to who went on to become a movie and TV star.
Mm.
And so after that, you started to mentor other friends and found that you just loved helping people achieve their dreams.
Yeah.
There's more. Sean is also a disabled combat veteran,
Yeah.
and you grew up as an illegal alien in Germany. Well, that's quite a hot frigging topic right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and you began door-to-door sales at the age of 11. And by the age of 16, you were abandoned in a foreign country by your parents,
Mm.
moved to Italy at 17, became an undercover store detective catching shoplifters, and then you joined the US Army while you were living in Italy. And you actually worked for military intelligence.
Yeah.
And you did a combat tour in Iraq.
Yeah. That's right.
Wow, okay, right. I'm going to stop there because, yeah. Welcome, Sean. I'm sure
Oh,
there's
thank you for
way
having me.
more. Unbelievable. It's amazing to have you on.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here, Mel. Thank you for having me on. It's crazy as I heard you going over that bio. It's just like it's all sounds so crazy. It's like a
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
No wonder
Yeah.
you were able to create your own blooming TV series and all of that with all of that experience and life
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, life wisdom, just kind of like being thrown to the wolves and surviving. But yeah, it's crazy that the TV show came so much later in life when I was 40. But I think it was the one thing I don't mention in there is that I had like this one little pivotal moment. It was about 3 days before I announced it to my friends and family at my birthday party that that's what I was going to do. I had gone to visit my grandmother in the hospital. She was 98 and she was definitely going to be passing. And so I had asked her if she had had any regrets, 98 years old, did she
Mm,
have any regrets or anything she wished she could do over? And she said, yeah, she goes, my main regret is that I didn't take more risks in life
mm,
and that I gave up on my dreams. And so that kind of like was ringing through my brain for the next 3 days because I was about to turn 40, and it's like one of those mile marker birthdays, and I'm hearing grandma's voice in my head. Then I thought, well, is there anything that I have? Because I had already done so much by that age. I thought, was there anything that I haven't like done, like a dream? And then I realized, yeah, when I was a kid, I had always dreamt of being on television. I got left alone a lot as a kid, so I used to watch a lot of TV. And I always dreamt in my mind that someday I was going to be on TV as well. And here I was about to turn 40 and I'd never done anything. Like I'd never taken an acting class. I had never been in a play. I had never, I knew nothing about show business. The closest I had come at that point was I was doing stand-up comedy, but that was it. But didn't know anything about show business whatsoever. And so I just boldly, there's some other things in my life that I had done, like I'd become an auctioneer, I'd become a stand-up comedian, I'd done different things. So I just followed the same formula. And one of the first things you have to do is you have to kind of just see it in your mind and visualize it. So I saw myself kind of doing this TV show. I just pictured it in my mind and I could hear a director going action and I could see cameramen and all this stuff. So I started to see it and believe, selling myself, right? So I'm starting to believe my own vision in my mind. And so then at my birthday party, which was like 3 days after I met with grandma, I have all my friends and family over at my house, and I just said, "Hey guys, listen up! I got some exciting news. I'm gonna have my own TV show." And my friends were just like blown away because they knew that I'd been doing stand-up. So some stand-ups go on to get TV shows. So they're like, "Whoa, dude, what? Wow, what?" They're like, "Oh, what's it gonna be called?" And I go, "Oh, I don't know yet." Like, "Oh," they're like, "But which channel is it gonna be on?" I'm like, "Ooh, I'm not sure yet." And they're like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, what's it about?" I'm like, "Ooh, I don't know yet." And they're like, "Wait a minute, what are we talking about here?" And so one of my friends goes, "Are you just talking about a dream?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then so my friends were like, "Yeah, okay, bro. Good luck with that." My wife said to me, she goes, "Listen, if that's what you want, I know you're gonna get it." Because she'd seen me achieve other things in life, right? So yeah, 9 months later, I was starring on my own TV show on True TV, and the journey that got me there was a pretty interesting journey. What happened in those 9 months, but yeah, did it, and then all those friends were like, "Oh my," like they just couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. They're like, "You did it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
that's like a crazy thing to announce to everybody. That you sound like you're having a midlife crisis when
Pretty
at 40 you just announced, "I'm going to have my own TV show," and you have no prior experience. People are like, "Oh,
much.
okay,
All right
sure,
then. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, good for you.
yeah.
You need a nap?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a drink."
Especially in the UK.
Oh,
Even more cynical over here, as I'm sure you know.
oh
Um,
yeah,
so okay, so obviously we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but I want to go back a little bit just to
sure.
understand more of your, always love to hear about where you've come from, a bit of your childhood. What was it that sort of has been driving you all these years to do all of these different things? And before we actually get onto that, I just wanted to say, grandma at 98, that is the biggest regret of the dying, isn't it? Not taking more chances.
That's right. That's
That
it.
absolutely is.
And giving up on their dreams.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so go back to wherever you want to start, but it sounds pretty intriguing in terms of being abandoned when you were bloody 16. How the hell did all that happen? But yeah,
Yeah.
take us from where you want to go from.
So we moved to Germany when I was almost 11, still 10, but shortly before my 11th birthday, we moved to Germany. My father had always dreamt of living in Europe. He had never gone to college. He worked in selling life insurance back in America. He had read an article about how Americans could sell life insurance to American GIs over in Germany that were stationed on the army bases, right? So my dad found a company that was willing to give him a contract. You don't, there's no guarantees, no nothing. You just basically like, yeah, you can go sell our insurance if you want. So he packed my mom and I up. We moved to Germany. We went there on a 90-day tourist visa, like people do. We didn't even go the proper way, and we got there and my father just figured out how to get onto the army bases and then he just started selling insurance and then the next thing you know we're just living in Germany and the reason why we were able to go under the radar was because because my dad was selling life insurance to American GIs, he wasn't working on the German economy, so he didn't need to apply for a job in Germany because he was selling on the army base. The people on the army base, they don't, you as a U.S. citizen, you can go onto the bases, but they don't really know, like if you're not really applying for a job on the base, there's no record of you there either.
Right.
And so because he was just walking up to GIs and saying, "Hey, have I spoke to you yet?" And then he'd go sit down with them and pitch them life insurance. So that's how we wound up in Germany as illegal aliens. And my dad's whole concept was that he would go out, sell as much life insurance as he could, get his commission checks, and then he'd put my mom and I in the car, and we would just go on these endless road trips until we ran out of money. And so my dad would just pull me out of school. And because I was an American kid going to a German school, like the Germans didn't really care whether or not I was there or wasn't there. It was just I wasn't part of their system really.
Mm.
They really didn't even know what to do with me. So my dad would just pull me out of school. We'd get in the car, and then sometimes the road trips would last for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It just depended on how much life insurance he had sold. And we would just, the goal was to see every castle in Europe. And then after that, it was my father was really obsessed with learning how things were made. So then we started doing all these factory tours, and we would go to every kind of factory you could think of, everything from automobiles to porcelain to crystal, how crystal glasses are made. And we would just go and take all these factory tours. My dad would always say, "You're going to learn more on this road trip than you'll ever learn sitting in a classroom." And so we did. We just did every inch of Europe. We would stay in these little tiny Airbnbs, like these little, they call them in Germany Zimmerfrei. And it's basically you just get a room in someone's house for the night. And back in those days, it was
Yeah.
super cheap. It
Yeah.
was like 20 marks a night. And the exchange rate back in those days were like 4 to 1. So $1, what my dad was getting paid in dollars. So $1 was 4 Deutschmarks. So basically, for $5 a night, we were able to stay in these guest houses, and it came with breakfast, and that's how we were able to stay on the road for so long because it was just so dirt cheap with the exchange rate. And so that was wonderful. And my dad was extremely adventurous, and he would always encourage me to try things, and we'd go places and do stuff. And I was the one that learned to speak German. My parents never did, so I was the family translator. So at a very young age, it was very typical, I think, of immigrant children, where the immigrant children learn the language, and so they have to do all the translation for the parents. So
Mm.
like if we didn't pay our phone bill, I was the one that had to go to the phone company and talk to the guy and get the phone turned back on. Or if my dad didn't pay the electric bill, which happened quite often, I'd have to go to the electric company and get the lecture about how irresponsible it was. The Germans would lecture you about how irresponsible it was to not pay your bills. And so I was the kid that was constantly having to go with my dad everywhere. And I would go to work with him. German school got out at 1 o'clock. And so my dad would just pick me up from school. I'd jump in the car with them. And the way I started doing door to door sales at 11 was he wasn't allowed to go into the US Army housing areas and knock on doors to solicit insurance. But he figured that his 11-year-old kid could go in and get lead cards filled out and nobody would do anything to me. So I'd get in the car with them. We lived about a half an hour from Hanau, where all the army bases were. So in the car, we were listening to Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you know who Zig Ziglar
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like this American sales guru.
Yeah.
So he was like filling my head with all these like motivational sales tapes and all this stuff. And so then he would turn me loose, and I'd go door to, and for every lead card I got filled out, he would pay me $1. And then we would go back in the evenings with on those lead cards once he set appointments. And if he sold them insurance, I'd get an additional $25 commission. And so at 11 years old, here I am working, going door to door to get leads from my dad, and it was great. And then my parents wound up getting divorced, separated. Then my dad moved away to Berlin when I was 15, and then at 16, my mom moved in with her boyfriend, and so at 16, I was left at the house alone. And then after about 2, 3 months, they just stopped paying all the bills, and I got evicted, and I got my own place to live. I got a job driving a forklift at night, and I finished high school living on my own. But what's so strange is that I didn't resent my parents for any of that
I was going to ask
because
you. That's,
mm,
I'd be pissed
I
off.
Yeah, no, I really love my parents. I really love my dad, especially my dad. He was so my father's no longer with us. He passed away, but he was so adventurous and such a character. And what was weird is like I look back now and I meet kids that are 16 and I go, "Oh my goodness, I
Mm.
can't believe I was on my own at 16." Like I meet kids that are sometimes I meet kids that are in their early 20s and I can't believe they're already living on their own because they just don't seem like they have the capacity for it. But I meet 16-year-olds and I'm like, "There's no way this kid should be trying to survive." But I think because I had been the family translator and had to deal with all the family business, and I knew all of that stuff, that I got an apartment in Hanau, and my apartment was 400 marks a month, which is basically $100. What back in those days was $100 a month, which was a really cheap rent. I got a job driving a forklift at night in a warehouse on the U.S. Army base. And then during the day, I went to Hanau American High School, and so I finished high school. I was able to go from German school over to the American school, and I only did 3 semesters in American school, but that was enough to get my high school diploma. And then once I got my diploma, I moved to Italy. And when I got down to Italy, at first I got a job on the army base in Vicenza as a shoe salesman, selling shoes on the army base in the base exchange. But then quickly I saw a job opening for an undercover store detective, and I applied for it. And even though I was at that time I was only 18, I got the job. And so then I had so much fun. I was like an undercover. I basically would walk around the store and I just looked like some kid that was in the store shopping, but I was the undercover store detective. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why Italy? What made you go to Italy?
I was dating a girl at the time, and we both thought it would be kind of cool to live in Italy. My father had moved from Berlin, and he was living in Italy, so I knew he would be nearby, and I kind of wanted to be near my dad again,
Mm.
and so went down there, and yeah, it was kind of cool, and I'm glad I did because after that I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my dad. So during the time that I lived there, he and I would go fishing, and we'd go do a bunch of stuff in Italy. So I had a lot of good memories from that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened next then? After.
While I was living in Italy, here I am. I'm working on this U.S. Army base in Vicenza, Italy, catching shoplifters, and I got to a point where my boss told me that I could hire another store detective to work with me and that I could interview the person. So I ended up hiring this lady, and she was quite a bit older than I was. I'm 18 at the time, so everyone seems older. But so she invited me to come over to dinner for a barbecue with her and her husband at their house one weekend. And I went and I get to talking to her husband. And he's like, hold on, let me get this straight. You speak fluent German like at native level, but you were born in the United States. Both parents are American. He goes, no criminal record, right? And you've never been, and I go, no. And he goes, okay. Because his job, come to find out, was he was the army recruiter, and his job was on the army base in Italy. He would go and meet with the kids at the high school on the army base in Italy and try to recruit them into the US Army. So when he meets me, he goes, you should go in the army. You could go in as a German translator for military intelligence. You can translate from, German to English, get a top secret clearance, do all this stuff. You'll get money for college, all these things, right? So I go, oh, that sounds pretty good. And next thing I know, I was in basic training, going into the U.S. Army. I was back in the States, going, what in the world? Like I had like the most amazing life living in Italy. I was 30 minutes from Venice, Italy, 30 minutes from the beach. I was working as an undercover store detective. I mean, life was just great. Next thing you know, I'm being screamed at by some drill sergeant. I'm like, what the hell did I do?
So
Yeah.
how long were you doing that for then in America?
So I just went through training. I went through basic, then they send you to 2 separate schools where you do your top secret training. One place is in Texas, one place was in Massachusetts. And then I got sent back to Germany where I was working as a translator for military intelligence. And then that's when Kuwait got invaded by Iraq. And and then my military intelligence unit, got sent to Iraq. And then that's how I wound up doing a combat tour in Iraq.
Oh, okay. Still
Yeah.
as a translator or actually out there?
Yeah, but we didn't have enough Arabic linguists. So what they did was the US government had there were all these kids that were living in the United States going to university that were actually from Kuwait, and they were on scholarships through OPEC. And so they pulled all their scholarships and told them they had to serve in the US Army. They gave them 2 weeks of basic training, and then they sent them to our unit, and we used them as our Arabic linguists because none of us spoke Arabic.
Yeah.
So they used all the German and Russian linguists to sit on on the listening equipment, your headphones on with the antenna up and you're listening to, and so we would sit there next to the Kuwaiti kids. They were listening, they would translate from Arabic into English, then we'd write the reports up and send it off.
Wow.
And so it was interesting, yeah.
So how long were you doing that for?
I was in the military for 4 years. So I was stationed in Germany, and then after Germany, then I went to Iraq, and after Iraq, I went to Arizona, and I was an instructor at a course in Arizona for a little while, and then I got out of the army, and that I met my while I was in the army, my last year in the army is when I met my wife, Lori.
Ah, so it's always a woman, isn't it? It's always a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. So I met Lori, and she was living in Arizona at the time, and so I had always thought I would just go right back to Europe. I thought I'd just go back to Germany, but then
mm,
I met Lori, fell in love with Lori, and so then I ended up staying in the U.S.
okay, so you met Laurie, you left the army.
Yeah.
So what next?
Well, a series of sales jobs because I that's what I defaulted to because I had called my dad up and I'm like, "Ah, I really don't know what to do." And you can't really take the skills you learned in the army, what I was doing as a German translator. Really wasn't much to do in Tucson, Arizona as a German translator. So I'm like, I really don't know what to do. My dad's like, "Well, you are an amazing salesperson." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you used to go door to door, used to go on all these sales calls with me." He goes, "You should just give sales a go." So I did. I started doing sales. I did some life insurance sales for a little while. I did really good at it, but I just didn't care for it. It wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
Then I floated around. I had my own little business for a little while where we have these car boot sales in America. We call them swap meets. And so I was getting these used uniforms from Los Angeles, bringing them to Arizona, and I would buy them for a nickel a pound. So for 5 cents, I'd get 3 pairs of pants and 3 shirts, and they were these like used uniforms, like the guys who deliver the beer companies or Coca-Cola or whatever. They have to wear like a uniform, and these uniforms, these companies will clean them and press them, and after they start to look a little shoddy, they just sell them off by the pound. So I was selling them at the car boot sale, and all the guys who are like mechanics and roofers and guys who have to provide their own work clothes, and they go through a lot of them because it gets oily or disgusting pretty quick. So I was out there selling used uniforms at the car boot sale, and so I had that was my first business, and I did pretty well with that. And then after that, I ended up going to I got myself I realized, what I thought, oh, I need some benefits. I needed some health insurance, and because Lori and I were married at this time. So I ended up after that, I ended up going and working for a magazine that sold advertising to apartments. And I took off, I just was so good at it. Like I was the number one salesman in the whole company nationwide, and I loved it, and I just took to it. It was just like selling advertising was so much fun for me, and I could really see the return on investment for the clients, and it was just great. And it was nice to be with a company that gave me some additional training, and I loved working there. So I worked with those guys, and then Lori and I took a vacation down to the Caribbean. We were on this cruise, and we got to talking to each other, and we're like, it's so hot in Arizona, like it would be so nice to live in California where the weather is nicer, And so we got to talk, and we're like, where would we want to live? So we're like, oh, maybe San Francisco, maybe LA, maybe San Diego. So as soon as we got back from our vacation, we went to the newspaper at the library, and we got a paper from each one of those towns, and we looked up jobs. I got interviews in all three cities the very next week. I flew out, interviewed with all three companies. All three companies offered me a job, and I said, okay, we could choose. And we picked San Diego. And so I started doing advertising sales in San Diego, and and I just loved it. It was wonderful. I worked for a weekly newspaper there called the San Diego Reader, and I really helped them grow. They had been stuck at $3 million a year in revenue. I came in and had a bunch of ideas for them, and within 36 months, I got them all the way up to 26 million in revenue.
Wow.
And yeah, because I'm really good at the sales stuff, and I trained all their salespeople, and and I helped them just kind of reshift everything. And so I did that. And then while I was there, I took a stand-up comedy class, fell in love with stand-up comedy. I was like, wow, but you're horrible. Like when you first start out, I don't care who you are, you're terrible. It takes years to become a good comedian. So the trick was trying to find stage time. And so I could, like, nobody wants to put you on their show if you're horrible. Like, you just stink up the room, you know? And what happens is if you're an open micer and you get on stage and here they've worked hard to bring in an audience and you're just terrible, people will get up and leave and they don't want to lose their audience. So it's a catch 22. Nobody wants to put you on. So I watched this, you know who Eddie Izzard is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Eddie. So Eddie, a lot of people don't know this. Eddie made one of the best documentaries in the world. If you are looking to be inspired, it's called Believe. So he makes this documentary about how he started off as a street performer, juggling and, Piccadilly Circus, juggling and riding the unicycle and whatever he could do to entertain people, right? And then he got into stand-up comedy, had the same problem that I had. Nobody wanted to give him any stage time because he was horrible. So then he got it in his mind that he would start his own comedy club. He would find a restaurant in London where he would convince them that he could, in the corner start like a little
Yeah.
comedy show. It was called Raging Bull or something like that. And so he did. So he started his own comedy show just so he could give himself stage time, so he could be on every show. And then from there, when you're watching the documentary, you see him then going on to do these world tours, and it's amazing to watch the whole process. So I thought, I'm gonna do what Eddie did. I'm gonna go find a restaurant here in San Diego, start my own comedy club. So I found this Greek restaurant that had a stage and lights and a microphone because they would do like belly dancing shows, at some of their lunches. But this place wasn't open for dinner ever because they were in a business park and nobody lived near it. So I convinced them to let me start a comedy club in there. And so I did 7 shows there every week for 8 years. I did one show on Thursday, 3 shows on Friday night, and 3 shows every Saturday night. And I put myself on every single show. And I would promote it by mailing out free tickets to businesses for their employees to come to a show. And we would pack it out, 217 people every single show. And so over the 8 years, I got really good. In the beginning, I wasn't great, but then I just got better and better and better and better and better. And by the end of the 8 years, I'm a real comedian, right? Really able to get on stage and just crush it. And so then from there,
Sean,
while I'm doing,
before you carry on,
yeah,
like I'm just sitting here exhausted with everything you're telling me right now, and I'm just thinking of
yeah,
how much work and effort would have gone in to all of these things that you've done.
yeah, yes.
What the hell drove you? Was it the fact that, your dad was a bit of a loose cannon and he was this wanderer and adventurer and all the rest of it, and that was just infectious for you? Or what else? Was it something else that sort of just made you want to do all of these things?
Well, okay, I think when you go back and you try to analyze the psychology behind all of it, right? Part of it's probably the abandonment issues and, hey, I'm good enough, love me, right? I want to be successful to just show my parents that, you know what I mean? You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? So
yeah,
there's
yeah,
probably a good healthy dosage of that.
yeah,
Then there's like also like um finding things that I was really good at that I really like came natural to me and that was fun and that I enjoyed. So sales was that. Like I love doing sales, especially when I found products that I really felt were helping other people. Like when I was selling the advertising in San Diego, I was really helping tons of businesses really bring in lots of clients, and I would watch my customers flourish, and it made me feel really good. And at the same time, the magazine I'm working for, the newspaper I'm working for, was on this trajectory straight up. So I was getting a lot of kudos and making more money and getting lots of like, wow, you're doing great, so that all felt wonderful. And then I think that with the comedy thing, I had seen Robin Williams when I was a little kid.
love Robin Williams.
So my mom, when I was a little kid, I was about like, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old. I used to love Robin Williams on Mork and Mindy, that TV
Yeah,
show, where he
yeah,
played an alien. And so my mom found out that he was going to be up at Lake Tahoe, and my mom at the time was a recruiter, and she would place people in management at different companies. She was worked for this company called Management Recruiters, so she worked in sales as well. So she had placed the manager at the Harrah's Casino at Lake Tahoe. She got him the job. So she calls him up and she goes, my kid is a gigantic fan of Robin Williams. I want to bring him to the comedy show. And he's like, ah, it's 21 and over only, there's no way. She goes, I need you to figure out how to get my kid to be able to see Robin. So, and they did. I didn't get to sit in the audience, but from backstage, kind of off in the wings, they got me a seat and I got to watch Robin Williams on stage when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And
Nice.
it blew my mind. And I just thought to myself, oh, I want to do that, right? And I didn't actually start comedy till I was 28 years old. So I really like for having that experience at such a young age and falling in love with comedy. And my mom had a bunch of comedy records. She had Bill Cosby and she had Richard Pryor. She had all these albums in the house, and I would listen. I was allowed to listen to the Bill Cosby records. So, so I just fell in love with comedy at a young age, and I just kind of always felt like that was something I wanted to try. So when I was living in San Diego, that was the first time I'd been anywhere where I saw a class. My wife actually found it in the newspaper. She goes, hey, look, the Comedy Store offers a stand-up class.
Wow.
So I went and took the class, and then I did an open mic, and then I got bit by the bug. And so all of a sudden, even though you're horrible at it, you're just loving it, right? So I think part of the motivation of like doing all these things was finding stuff that I was good at and that I could excel at, or that I really loved doing, even though I wasn't good at it, but I loved it so much that I was willing to keep doing it until I got good at it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Robin Williams, yeah, what a guy. Absolutely loved him. Um, so okay, so you're packing it out every night, 8 years, and
Yep.
you got bloody good.
Yeah.
And then what?
Well, okay, so while I was still at the newspaper, still doing stand-up comedy, and I was about to turn 40 at this point, right? I'd started that newspaper when I was 28. So here I was, closing in on 40. I'd been working at that newspaper for almost, what is that, like 12 years?
Hmm.
And had done I did very well. I had really no reason to leave. I was being compensated very well. I was the star of the show at the paper because I had grown them from 3 million to 26 million. They didn't want me to go anywhere. I didn't want to
No.
go anywhere. But I was doing this comedy and I was just loving it. And then I had that conversation with my grandmother, and then that just like that light went off in my brain, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm not getting any younger. I've already I realized now that like money's not going to bring you happiness because I was doing very well financially working at the newspaper, but you just realize that money is a wonderful tool and it's a great thing to have, and you can provide comforts and it can get rid of some stress and all of that. But true genuine happiness in this lifetime is like you have like a dream or something that's living in your heart that you feel drawn towards, that you want to do. And so I realized after talking to my grandma, I thought, well, this is it. Like you get one shot, you get this, there's no redos in life. And the only thing that could happen was I could wait where I was too old, didn't have the health, didn't have the energy, and then I'd look back and regret it. So that's when I just thought, okay, I'm gonna do this. And the way I had done comedy and the way I had done a lot of these other things was I just said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And then I would visualize it, because the wonderful thing is I had all those years when I was younger of listening to Zig Ziglar and all the motivational tapes in the car with my dad. So I knew about visualization. I knew about like you have to close your eyes and see what it is that you want in your mind. And then you have to believe with every fiber in your being that you're doing it and that you can do it and that what you're seeing in your mind is going to come true. And then what you have to do is you have to basically announce it to friends and family because they're going to hold you accountable. Like, oh, so how's that TV thing coming? So you have to put yourself on the hook. You can't just keep it to yourself. That's scary. You got to put it out there. And then you just have to look for the opportunities and start taking action immediately. And so when I announced that to my friends and family, that was my birthday was on a Thursday night. Saturday. By this point, I was also already doing some auctions. I was doing charity fundraising auctions for nonprofits. I had just started this. Like, I mean, I think I was doing like my fourth auction ever. It was for the American Cancer Society in La Jolla, California. And so I go and I do it. And a guy who was one of my advertisers from the newspaper came up to me who had been in the audience with his wife. And he owns a self-storage facility. And he goes, Sean, he goes, dude, I knew you were doing stand-up comedy. He goes, but you're an auctioneer? He goes, that was fun. I go, oh yeah, I just started doing these. A friend of mine convinced me to do it. I go, a friend of mine had double booked himself and he needed someone to cover his auction.
I was going to
So
say, how did you get going? Yeah, right.
I went online and watched some videos and I just tried to mimic what the guy was doing in the video online. And I just went and did my first auction just like that, right? So wow. He goes, how many have you done? I said, I think tonight was like my fourth one. He goes, well, you were great. He goes, you should come do my storage auction. I go, storage auction? What's that? He goes, well, people don't pay their storage bills. The only way we can get rid of the stuff that's inside the unit so we can re-rent it is to auction it off. He goes, that gives the person whose stuff it is a chance, a fair fighting chance to buy it back at auction. And I go, oh, there was no TV shows. There was nothing like this, right? So I had just told all my friends and family on Thursday night, I'm going to have my own TV show, right? And I also knew it should be something that I had some experience at. So I thought, okay, well, I've been doing lots of stand-up comedy. I know how to like joke around with people and do crowd work. I had done 4 of these auctions and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. So I said, when's your next storage auction? He goes, it's Tuesday morning. I said, okay, cool. I'll be there. So I went Tuesday and I watched this thing and there were only like 23, 24 guys at the auction. And I'm watching the auctioneer. He's like boring. He's like, all right. He's opening the doors. Stuff was selling for like $25, $30. I couldn't believe it. There's like thousands of dollars worth of stuff selling for 20, $30. And I'm like, why does nobody know about this? I go, this is going to be my TV show.
Wow.
I'm going to be that auctioneer. I'm going to make fun of people. I'm going to make it fun. So I go to my buddy in the office and I said, hey man, I want to do your next auction. He goes, that's great. He goes, that's wonderful. I go, where do these people sell this stuff? He goes, oh, at the swap meets and the car boot sales, right? So I go, oh, I know that world pretty well. When I was younger, I used to. So I got my wife and I got some clipboards and some paper, and for the next 5 weekends in a row, every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we went to the car boot sales all around San Diego. There were like 11 of them. And we would just go up to everybody selling and saying, hey, I got a giant storage auction. Do you want to come? People were like, yeah, it'd be great. So I get their phone number and their email address and their names. I started promoting the heck out of my first auction where that guy had about 23. I hired a cameraman who I'd met at one of these charity events I had done. Was a guy there filming it with a camera. So I said, hey, what would it cost to hire you to come film me? I want to try to sell a TV show. And I go, do you want to try to do it with me? He goes, no, man, it's too hard to sell a TV show. He goes, I'll do it for you for $1,500. And I thought, oh, I'll probably make at least that doing the auction, right? So I said, okay. So I hire him. And the very first auction I ever do is the one we filmed. 800 people show up. It was a madhouse because I had gotten 2,000 people on my list from all those 11 swap meets. And so we had emailed everybody and we were broadcast texting, sending them text messages. We were just promoting the heck out of it. And I was hoping to get like 100 people. 800 people show up. It was a madhouse, but it was wonderful because there was pushing and shoving and I'm giving people nicknames and I'm making fun of people and the cameraman's getting it all. And by the end, I had enough footage that a week later he calls me up and he goes, okay, come check it out. I went over to his office. I watched it and it was about 3.5 minutes long. And it was what it eventually became Storage Hunters, but it was the very first thing ever, right? So I watch it and I'm like, this is amazing, right? And he got me like giving people nicknames and cracking on people and making everybody laugh. And he got people shoving and pushing each other and all the cool stuff people were finding in the storage units. I'm like, this is a show. I had no agent, no manager, no show contacts. I didn't know the first thing. So what I did was I called my boss up at the newspaper and I said, hey, I need to take 3 vacation days. And he goes, yeah, no problem. So I took 3 days off. I Googled TV networks and I got the phone numbers of every TV network in America, all the big ones, ABC, NBC, Fox, everything, right? And then I got all the little cable ones, like every channel you could think of in the United States. And I thought, okay, I'll start with the biggest and I'll work my way down. And I got on the phone and I just started cold calling them. And I'm like, they're like, thank you for calling NBC. And I'm like, yeah, hey, listen, I need to talk to someone. I got a new show idea. I want to show someone. Sir, we don't take unsolicited ideas. Click. Hung up on me. I'm like, whoa, what, that was fast. ABC, everybody just hanging up on me, right? But as people are saying certain words to me, I start jotting them down because I knew this from sales, right? So, and I also knew that from working for military intelligence to get the key words. So, so someone said, "Oh, we don't take our unscripted department doesn't take unsolicited ideas." And I'm like, "Oh, unscripted. Oh, I thought I was trying to sell a reality TV show. It's called unscripted." So I go, "Oh, unscripted." So I wrote that down. And then oh, development department. So I wrote that down. So then I would call up and I'd say, "Yeah, I need to speak with the development department, unscripted development department." And who's this and that, and I'd get hung up on. So anyway, long story short, I call every network in the United States. They all hang up on me. So then what do? I go back to the very beginning of the list and I start calling again. But now I'm armed with all these keywords. Very first one, NBC, largest network in the United States. Thank you for calling NBC. I'm gonna say, yeah, development, non-scripted development, please. Okay, one moment. Boom, I'm through. They're like, duh, duh, duh. Thank you for calling. It was like Suzanne Wilson's office, right? Or something like that, right? I can't remember the person's name. And I go, yeah, let her know it's Sean. And she goes, will she know what this is about? I go, I sure hope so. So next thing you know, I'm on the phone with the head of development for NBC. Like this is a big deal. And I go, hey, listen, my name's Sean. And she goes, Sean. And I go, this is Sean Kelly. I go, I just got done filming what's going to be your next big hit. And I started to tell her about it. She goes, whoa, wait a minute. She goes, I don't know you, do I? I go, no, but I need to tell you this. She goes, no, 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 please don't. She goes, we're not allowed to take unsolicited ideas. It's against our policy. I'll get in trouble with our attorneys. I love that you got past the gatekeepers. I love your tenacity. And she goes, and I'm sure just based off of your energy and excitement, you probably have a good idea, but you have to go through your agent and set up a proper meeting. She goes, because if we're already working on a similar idea, you might think that we stole it. And so we can't listen to your idea. I go, oh, she goes, every network in America is like that. I go, oh, okay. I go, where do you get these agents? And she goes, what? Where do you get an agent? And I go, yeah. I go, like, what? She goes, well, like WME and CAA and Gersh. And she starts, and I'm like writing these down as quick as she's saying them. So I go, okay, thank you. So I Google all these agencies, cold call all of them. They're like, are you friends with someone who's one of our clients? No, sorry, we only work off referrals. Click, click. Every agency in America hangs up on me. So then I go in and I Google specific agents' names. And at WME, I got the head of non-scripted. His name was Evo Fisher. So I'm like, yeah, Evo Fisher's office, please. Okay, one moment. Then I get his assistant. I go, Evo, please. Well, may I ask who's calling? This is Sean. Sean. I go, Sean Kelly. She goes, Sean, are you one of Evo's clients? I go, not yet, but I'm hoping to be. Oh, okay, hold on. She's like, it doesn't work like that. Do you know someone that knows Evo? No, blah, 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 blah. So I tell her, I'm like, look, I just got off the phone with NBC. They want to hear my idea. I just need an agent. She goes, look, it just doesn't work like that. She goes, but I'll tell you what. She goes, my boyfriend is trying to do what you're doing. And so what he's doing is he's pitching to production companies directly. They have agents and they have the relationships with the networks. I go, oh, what do the production companies do? She goes, what? She goes, you don't know what a production company does? I go, no, what are those? And she goes, they're the ones that make the TV shows for the networks. And I go, oh. She goes, yeah, that's who you would want to partner up with. I go, well, what are they called? So she gives me some names. I thank her. I Google all these production companies. Turns out they're mostly in Santa Monica, California, in LA, but out in the Santa Monica neighborhood. So I start cold calling. I can't get through to anyone. Long story short, I get denied by everyone. So then I go on to GoDaddy.com. I buy a domain name for $9, and I put my little video up there. And I said, "Here's your next hit television show idea." And I put my phone number. I bought Google AdWords. I targeted them towards Santa Monica, and I put in 80 search phrases and words that I thought someone looking for a TV show idea might type into Google. I put the per click really high because I had money left over from the auction, and I thought very few people are going to click on it. So I put the per click at $50, so I'd be the number one listing. And 3 weeks later, I got one click and one phone call, and that was the only click and only call I ever got. And this guy goes, "Hey, I'm with a motion graphics company. We just saw your video. We think it might make a great TV show. We're not a production company, but the owner of our company was at the dog park yesterday morning and he met a woman who owns a production company. She gave us an open door policy to pitch show ideas. We want to pitch your idea." I go, "Fantastic." I met up with those guys. A week later, I'm in front of this lady, Jenny, at this huge production company, pitch her my idea, show her my reel. She loves me. She loves the reel. Next thing you know, I'm being told that I'm going to star on A&E, which is a really big American network, and my show's going to be called Storage Wars. And I'm like, wow, it's going to be huge. A week after that, they call back and they go, oh, A&E canceled on us. Their sister company, the History Channel, already was working on a similar idea. That's moving to A&E. They're going to become Storage Wars. And I go, what? Now there's already a competitor. They said, don't worry. Now that there's already one, we'll find another network. And then a week after that, I was on the phone with they got me on the phone with the vice president of Tru TV. He really liked me. He agreed to make a pilot. We made the pilot. They didn't like the pilot because the people they hired to do the pilot had a different vision than what I had, and it was horrible. And True TV said, we're not going to make the show. And so I went back to Jenny and she goes, well, why weren't you yourself? Why didn't you joke around? Why didn't you make fun of people? And I go, because those guys you hired told me not to. She goes, what? She goes, I'm going to verify that right now. So she gets on the speakerphone, she calls these guys, and they're like, yeah, well, we had a different vision. She goes, who told you to have a different vision? We wanted this guy, right? So she calls True TV back and she goes, give us one more shot. We'll refilm it, no charge. Just will you be willing to watch it one more time? They go, sure. So we make the pilot one more time. They love it. They air it. It was the #1 rated show in the history of the network. More people watched that first episode than they'd ever watched any show on the entire network in its existence. And immediately they bought 2 seasons for it from us. And then immediately after that, it started airing in the UK on Dave. And
Wow.
that's how it became a big hit. So that's the whole story of like of how I did it.
Wow is all I
Yeah.
can say. Wow. Are
Is it
you
crazy?
it's crazy. It's crazy. And
Yeah.
it honestly, I'm quite an ambitious person and I've tried a few things and I've been in sales and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, what the hell was I pissing about at? Listening to you, what the hell was I pissing about at? You just
Yeah.
literally.
It's hard to compare yourself to other people. Like I sometimes compare myself to people who are crazy successful, and it's not really fair, it's not a fair thing to do to ourselves. I think
No,
what
I
it
get
is
that. I
like,
get that.
I
Yeah.
think like what we should do, what everyone should do and all your listeners should do is just like try to find that one thing that's living deep inside your heart that you've been too scared to almost admit to yourself that you've wanted to do or try, because the odds of failure are so great that you just feel like yeah, okay, yes, I would love to be a great, painter, or I'd love to be able to play the piano like Mozart, or yes, I would love to be a singer, or I would love to do this, or I'd love to do that, but I have none of that natural talent, and I would just fail, right? But if it's something that lives in your heart that you've always wanted to do, and you're willing to say, okay, I'm willing to take the journey to get myself there, right? So obviously one of the reasons why I was so good in the little video clip that I filmed of that first storage auction was because I had already been doing stand-up comedy for several years.
Yeah.
So I had already created that stage time for myself years prior and had been doing 7 shows every week. So I was used to like when it was time to start the show, boom, I'm on, I'm going. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Right? I had it, I already had that. So, so then when I decided, hey, I want to do this TV show, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to use my natural strengths. My natural strength is had already gotten pretty good at comedy. I had already learned how to become an auctioneer, kinda, you know. And so I thought, okay, those are 2 things I know how to do, and I know sales, and I know, and I know this comedy game, and I know how to work the crowd and all that stuff. So I thought, okay, so I could have chosen some other type of show, right? Something completely different that I wasn't good at, and people would have been like, yeah, no, we're not going to put you on TV. But because I had already developed those strengths, so I would say that if you're looking for fast success, if there are some stuff that you are good at, that you have natural strengths at, your listeners, like if there's things that they've developed over the year, like, actually I'm pretty good at this, or I'm pretty good at that. If you could take that and put it into something else, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I took that comedy skills and the auction skills and put it over into this storage auction world and made a show out of it. If you can transfer your skills into something else, you have a better chance of succeeding. But I think like it all starts with that searching your heart and finding that thing. And then once you find that thing where you go, like like with comedy, I never wanted to give up. I didn't get tired of I'm not doing comedy anymore because I feel like I achieved everything I was looking to achieve. I did my last stand-up comedy tour was in the UK. I did 122 shows in 2017. I did 50 shows at the Fringe, and then I went out and I did a 70 theater tour. First I did 20 theaters as a warm-up around the UK. Then I did 50 at the Fringe, and so that was 70 of them. And then I went out and I did another 52 proper tour, 52 cities. So all collectively all together I did 100, I think it was 100 and I think I did 122 cities.
mm,
And so after that tour, I thought, I feel like I've kind of done it, like I had a successful tour. It was very exhausting for my wife and I to be in a van
yeah,
going to one from one council theater to the to the next town wherever I was, because we were doing council theaters. We were doing these theaters that were between 200 and 600 seats, and we were in a different city every night. And to do 122 shows in like a short on a tour, uh, my wife and I were like, this is crazy. I was 47 at the time. I'm 54 now, but I was 47 and she's 5 years older than I am. So she was 52 and we were quite exhausted.
yeah,
But it was, and so I wasn't at the level where I was like a household name for comedy that I could just sell out big theaters and have it be very profitable. I think like the tour manager I had in the UK, his name was Nigel, a wonderful man, and he tours lots of famous British comedians. He wanted to just keep Lori and I on the road for years. Like if we would have done it, if we would have just stayed on it, he would each August we would have been at the Fringe working on a new act. And every fall and spring we would have been out touring the UK, and just it would have just been one nonstop thing. But we just thought, we would have loved this in our 20s, but
yeah.
you know, in our late 40s, early 50s, it's exhausting.
Oh, wow. But what a
But
ride.
I'm so glad I did it.
Exactly. What a ride.
Yeah.
So conscious that we're running out of time here, but tell me more about this next phase that you're doing, where you're helping and mentoring other people with their dreams.
Yeah, so I do two things to make a living right now to keep money coming in. Like everyone needs, a living. So the two things I do for a living, one is I do charity fundraising auctions still, raise a lot of money for nonprofits. I do about 20 of those a year where I'm raising money either for schools or, nonprofits that are helping children with cancer, that kind of stuff. And so that's one of my paying jobs and I really love it. It's what a great way to make a living. It's such a win-win. It helps them raise a lot of money. I make some money doing it, and we're helping lots of people, and I just love it. It's so much fun. So I do that. Then the other thing that I do is I've been working as I have my own sales training company. It's called Sales Trainer. It's called salesteamtrainer.com. And so people go on there and companies hire me and I come in and I train their sales forces how to sell and I teach my system of selling, which I believe is a really good system. And then that sometimes will lead to business consulting. Like owners will have me come in and train their sales team, and then they're like, "Ooh, can you help us a little bit with like how to grow the sales internally, with maybe how to get more leads and that kind of stuff?" So I'm doing those things. So those are the two ways that I'm making money. Either I'm doing sales training or I'm on stage doing auctions. Then for just pure giving back, I have this dothebigdream.com where people can go on there, read about my background, and then they can click and go into a private Facebook group. And there's no charge. Every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, which is not a great time for the UK. That's
No,
like 1
1
a.m.
a.m.
And I have some Brits who are there every week, and God bless them. I can't believe they stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning. But from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., I do free coaching on there, and for whoever shows up. And I think I got about 250 people in that group. And each week I'll give between somewhere on the low end 5 people and on the high end maybe 15 people that will show up each week. And whatever it is that they're working on, their big dream, I coach them along. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you try doing this or try doing that? And I initially taught everybody, and you can go on to, if you go in and join my private Facebook group, there's some videos that are pinned at the top
Yeah.
where I teach the 15-step formula that I have and the 4 pillar skills. And basically, the 15-step formula is kind of the stuff I covered with you, the visualization and believing it and taking action and all that stuff. So it takes you through the 15 steps of from coming up with the initial idea of what your big dream is all the way through to achieving your big dream. So there's those 15 steps. And then the other things that I believe that you have to kind of be good at, one, you have to have an unshakable self-confidence. And so I teach people how I achieved that. And so I tell them the story of this this brief encounter that I had with an Olympic gold medalist when I was 15 in Switzerland that changed my life forever. And how that, it taught me how to have that inner self-confidence. Then I teach people how to overcome the fear of rejection forever, just like so that you don't even perceive rejection. You don't even perceive it as rejection, and there's no fear of it. So how to eliminate that from your life. And then I teach them some goal setting and some sales stuff, because those are kind of like 4 skills, 4 core skills that have really helped me work that 15-step system very well. And I can just tell you very quickly, I could leave you on this. I'll tell you the quick, brief encounter that I had with the gold medalist in Switzerland.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm 15. I was on a ski team in Germany, and I was, because my father sold life insurance. Sometimes we had money, sometimes we didn't have money. It was feast or famine. So as a result, I was on the ski team, and I was the charity case. I was the kid that was on scholarship. My parents didn't pay for me to be on the team, but as such, I had to use rental skis and rental boots, and I skied in sweatpants and an oversized jacket. All the other kids had aerodynamic ski suits, the latest, greatest equipment. They got private clinics, but I didn't care. I was just happy. Like, I got to ski every weekend, right? I was like, I felt so amazing. Like, I get to ski, and I love to ski, and it was awesome. So I went to Switzerland with my church youth group when I was 15. And all the kids, none of them really could ski, but I had been on the ski team for a couple of years, so I was a good skier. So they were all taking like classes, and I went off and I'm skiing like down this Black Diamond run in Wengen, Switzerland. It's like, Black Diamonds are super steep. I got my Walkman on. It's 1985. I'm 15 years old. I'm listening to Van Halen. I'm going down this mountain like a bat out of hell. And at one point, I remember passing some guy. I was like that, just like he was just like a flash. I didn't even really pay attention. I just went by him so fast. I get to the bottom of the hill. I'm leaning over my poles and I'm trying to catch my breath because I've been going so fast. So this guy skis up to me, starts yelling at me. He's like, "Hey, hey, you!" And so I take my headphones off and I go, "Me?" And he goes, "Oh, you speak English?" I go, "Yeah, I'm American." And he goes, "Oh, you're American too?" He goes, "Oh, wow." He goes, "Hey, man." He goes, "Are you here for the Labberhorn?" And I go, "No." I go, I don't even know what that is. I go, "I'm here with my church youth group." He goes, "Your youth group?" He goes, "All the way from the States?" I go, "No, no, I live in Germany." He goes, "You live in Germany?" I go, "Yeah, it's a long story. My dad sells insurance, blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Oh, wow." He goes, "Hey, listen." He goes, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm 15." And he goes, "Hey, listen." He goes, "You really should consider racing." I go, "Oh, I do race. I'm on a race team." He goes, "Oh, well, that makes sense." He goes, "How many races have you won?" I go, "Oh, well, I haven't won any races." I go, "I'm the charity kid on the team. I got these rental skis and boots, and the other kids have aerodynamic suits." And he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." He goes, "Stop." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Stop talking." I go, I was looking at him like, "That's rude." He goes, "Do me a favor." He goes, "Get on the chairlift right up the mountain with me." He goes, "I want to tell you something." So I get on the chairlift with this guy, and he goes, "Have you ever heard of Billy the Kid?" I go, "Sure, the cowboy." He goes, "No, not the cowboy." He goes, "Did you watch the Winter Olympics in Sarajevo last year?" And I go, "Yeah, I did." I go, "An American won the gold medal in the downhill for the first time." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Bill Johnson." I go, "Yeah, Bill Johnson. He won the gold medal." He goes, "Yeah, I'm Bill Johnson, Billy the Kid. They call me Billy the Kid." And I go, "Oh my God, you you are Billy the Kid. You're Bill John. He goes, yes. And he goes, and do you want to know why I skied up to you? And I go, okay. And he goes, I didn't ski up to you because I need more friends. He goes, I skied up to you because I saw you coming down that mountain so fast and so fearless. He goes, I thought to myself, I got to race this guy in the Labahorn tomorrow. I'm going to go get in his head. I go, what's the Labahorn? He goes, the World Cup. I go, you thought I was going to be in the World Cup? He goes, yeah. He goes, that's how fast you were going. And I was like, wow. He goes, now listen to me carefully. He goes, because I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. He goes, you need to quit telling yourself all the reasons why you're not going to win. He goes, because here's the secret to life. He goes, what you tell yourself and what you sell yourself on, he goes, is what you will buy and what you will believe. And what you buy and what you believe is what you will project to the world, and other people will believe that about you. So if you tell yourself that you have nothing to lose and that you're a champion and you're a winner and that there's no reason why you don't deserve these gold medals and why you don't deserve, because if you really honestly believe that with all your heart, he goes, then you will project that and other people will start to treat you like you're a winner and you're going to start to feel like a winner. And he goes, and that is the secret to winning. And I was like, I go, so I just have to sell myself and believe it and then project it and other people. And he goes, yes. I was like, wow. So we get to the top of the mountain. He skis off to the right. I ski off to the left. I never see this guy again the rest of my life. 3 months later, I'm in Garmisch, Germany, and I win 3 gold medals, two in giant slalom and one in slalom. And the only thing that had changed was that talk. And so then I realized that is the secret to self-confidence is you have to believe it. You have to sell yourself.
Yeah.
You have to tell yourself, I can do this. I'm worthy of this. I deserve this. I can achieve this. You have to tell yourself all of these things. And then as a result, then you will project once you start to believe it yourself, then you will have that confidence and you will project that to the world. And people will be like, oh yeah, this guy, right? And then the doors
Wow.
just kind of open for you. Yeah, pretty powerful.
That is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that because I always say, leave the show with anything you feel cool to share, but that was perfect, right? Um,
Yeah. Well, I wish we
wow.
had more time, but like we talked about the kind of the before we get started, I have to head out. But this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I've loved it. Where can people find you? What's the easiest place for them to find you?
Well, okay, so I would say this. I would say, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram and all that stuff if they want to go find me on there. Like just if you always look for the Sean Kelly comedy or Sean Kelly auctioneer, you all come up there somewhere. But it depends on what they want to get in touch with me about. Like if they just want to come join my Facebook group and go to dothebigdream.com, they can go in there, read it. There's links. It'll take them right there and they can fill out the information and then they can join that for free. And then if they want to come on a Zoom call on Mondays with us, it's 1 a.m. UK time. I'm going to probably have to change that at some point so that it works
Yeah.
for both US and the UK. But they're welcome to come do that, and they can be a part of the coaching sessions if they want. And there's no charge for that. That's just me kind of giving back and helping, and I get a lot out of it myself because it's wonderful to help other people. I have several people in there that are going after different dreams. Sometimes it's a small business. Sometimes it's I have a woman who wants to do a one-woman show. I've got people that want to launch products and different things. So it's kind of fun, and it's all the stuff I enjoy tinkering with. So there's that. If someone owns a business and they're like, hey, we would love to have Sean from Storage Hunters come and be our sales trainer and give sales training to our team, they can just go to salesteamtrainer.com and hit me up on there and figure out how to get me over to the UK and I'll come over and do some sales training for them. And then even when I was in the UK, I didn't do a whole lot. I did some charity auctions, but I didn't do a whole lot because it's kind of different in the UK.
Yeah.
But I did do some. I did do some there.
Amazing. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be checking out your Facebook group as well. I
I'm
don't know.
glad.
I
Sure.
don't know whether you'll see me live at 1 o'clock, but do you have the recordings at all? Do you put those out,
I
or do you just do it as
I've
live?
been doing these live Zooms. What I need to do is I need to record them and then post them back into the group. I've just been kind of keeping it amongst the people who are there that day.
Oh, yeah.
But I probably should post some of them so that people, but sometimes I don't know how interesting it would be for people to just
Yeah.
listen to me coaching other people on their dreams versus having any kind of buy-in in it. But sometimes you can get good ideas. Like sometimes I'll
Yeah.
kick off a great idea for one person where everyone's like, whoa, oh, let me write that down. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah. And whatever you're sharing with other people, there is going to be relevance. Some more than others, different,
Yeah,
but there would be. Okay, cool. Well, I know that you've got to go. Thank you for giving me extra time because I was actually late to this
absolutely.
call.
Well,
So
anytime you reach out to me, it's been a real pleasure. It's just really, really nice for you to have me on. It was wonderful meeting you, and this has been great.
yeah, absolutely. And all the best with everything you do. Not that you need it, because yeah, I didn't even get to ask you whether you believe in the law of attraction, but you must because everything is just like amazing, right?
100%. I 100%. 100%.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Take care.